Kennedy Tower reports. Kennedy Tower reports that there was a fire at the World Trade Center, and that's the area where we lost the airplane.
Check with you now. Did you know if anyone down there has done any coordination to scramble fighter type airplanes?
Do you think airplanes in there?
No, we have several situations going on here. It's escalating big time. And we need to get the military involved with us.
Yeah, what's going on?
Just get me somebody who has the authority.
This video is sponsored by...
Good morning, America! It's Tuesday, September 11th. Looks like Hurricane Erin loomed off the coast to the east, so it may very well be the case that we're gonna have a beautiful day out here in New York City. All right, now let's start with some news. Yesterday's New York Giants...
On September 11, 2001, nearly 3,000 people became victims of the most devastating series of terrorist attacks executed on American soil. In this episode, you'll learn why the 9/11 attacks took place, how they were planned and executed, and how the world changed after 9/11. Let's start with the why. Here's the story. In 1979, the Soviets invaded Afghanistan to support the recently instilled pro-Soviet government in their war against various Islamist rebel groups backed up by the US, UK, Saudi Arabia, and other countries. They did not want the communists to win. Among those who also did not want communists to win was the young son of a Saudi Arabian businessman, Osama bin Laden. He saw the Soviet invasion as a direct threat to the Islamic world. Bin Laden joined the rebels in 1979 and moved to Pakistan, from where he and his allies were funneling arms, money, and fighters to Afghanistan. Let's start with the why. Here's the story. In 1979, the Soviets invaded Afghanistan to support the recently instilled pro-Soviet government in their war against various Islamist rebel groups backed up by the US, UK, Saudi Arabia, and other countries. They did not want the communists to win. Among those who also did not want communists to win was the young son of a Saudi Arabian businessman, Osama bin Laden. He saw the Soviet invasion as a direct threat to the Islamic world. Bin Laden joined the rebels in 1979 and moved to Pakistan, from where he and his allies were funneling arms, money, and fighters to Afghanistan. The key takeaway is that the US and Osama bin Laden were on the same side. The conflict lasted for 10 years, and in 1989, when the Soviets finally abandoned Afghanistan empty-handed, Osama returned to Saudi Arabia as a hero. But he quickly gained the reputation of a radical opponent of the Saudi Arabian government, and especially their foreign and defense policy. What was Osama concerned with? For starters, he was unhappy that during the Gulf War, the Saudi Arabian government chose to rely on the US for all things defense rather than on its domestic force. More on that later. But perhaps Osama's biggest concern was that after the Gulf War in 1991, the US kept operating in the region, playing an active role in the daily agenda of the Islamic world. Even the US military bases across Saudi Arabia were there to stay. Osama felt the Saudi government was undermining Islam, thus putting the Islamic world at risk by bringing capitalists to their front door. The beef between bin Laden and the Saudi government got so intense at one point in the 1990s that Osama was exiled from his country, lost his citizenship, and moved, first to Sudan and then to Afghanistan. By then, bin Laden had already established Al-Qaeda, an organization that declared the holy war against the US. The 9/11 was nothing but an echo of the war that had been going on for nearly a decade. Now, let's talk about how the attacks were planned and executed. By 1996, 5 years before the attacks, Al-Qaeda already had a clear vision of how the events would unfold on 9/11. They wanted to demolish U.S. power and economic prosperity symbols, such as the U.S. Capitol building, the Pentagon, and the World Trade Center. After considering many options, they eventually decided to use kamikaze-style airplane attacks. The airplanes, especially the large commercial ones, carry tons and tons of jet fuel on board, and thus can be used as jet fuel-filled missiles to cause devastating damage. Needless to say, it took Al-Qaeda years to prepare for the attack, 5 years to be precise. They took their time to select each candidate for this operation, trained 4 pilots to fly commercial airplanes, and taught 15 muscle hijackers how to neutralize flight attendants, pilots, and uncooperative passengers and take control of the plane. On the morning of September 11, 2001, all 4 groups of terrorists successfully took control of 4 airplanes shortly after takeoff. You know what happened next? 2 Boeing 767s crashed into the World Trade Center Twin Towers in New York City. 1 Boeing 757 crashed into the Pentagon headquarters in Virginia. Another 757 never reached its target. Apparently, the flight passengers retaliated and almost forced the hijackers to nosedive the plane miles away from the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Now, let's talk about how the terrorists were able to hijack the airplanes. The pre-flight security checks and in-air security procedures of the early 2000s were nowhere near today's standards. Before 9/11, one could take a knife up to 4 inches on board the plane, no questions asked. The only security measure in place was a super basic metal detector, which was only decent at detecting large metal items. Al-Qaeda exploited those holes in U.S. airline security as the hijackers carried small knives and box cutters through security and used them to assault the crew. The in-flight security procedures before the 9/11 attacks were also cumbersome. For example, flight attendants used to have keys that would open the cockpit doors. That's exactly how the hijackers accessed the cockpit. They forced the flight attendants to open the cockpit doors or threatened to blow up the aircraft and had the pilots themselves open the doors. After 9/11, the keys to cockpit doors were eliminated, doors toughened, and in-flight security rules changed so that pilots do not open the cockpit doors no matter what. Today, the cockpit doors will remain shut even if a bloodbath unfolds in the cabin. Also, the reinforced post-9/11 cockpit doors can withstand gunfire and even grenade explosions. Millions of people remember what they did and where they were on September 11, 2001. What happened at the very beginning of the 20th century is yet another reminder of how fragile our world is, and how easily a perfect day can turn into the most horrific premeditated tragedy. Alright, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to hit that notification.
This video is sponsored by Banter. iOS 18 has been out for a while now. I made a video all about it, which you should check out if you've not already. But as ever with a new operating system, we're just scratching the surface in these early videos. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 10 more amazing things that your iPhone can do now, thanks to iOS 18. Okay, let's get into it. You can now perform both maths and currency conversions directly in the composition screen of apps like Messages or Mail. While this might not sound like a big deal, it's actually really useful. For example, let's say that I'm messaging a friend to let them know the total cost of some flights that I've booked and paid for, and I want to tell them how much they owe me. Instead of using a calculator, I can just type the total cost and then write /2 equals to divide that amount by 2. As you can see, when I do this, the iPhone recognizes that I'm trying to do some maths, and the menu bar above the keyboard provides a few different options. I can choose to either input just the result or include the full equation, which shows the breakdown of how I arrived at the number. Next, I can type the amount followed by the pound sign and press equals, and you'll notice that my phone assumes that I might want to convert this amount into another currency. In my case, it defaults to US dollars. I'm not sure if this is a system-wide default when using pounds or if the phone has learned from my frequent conversions between GBP and USD. Either way, I can choose to include either the full conversion or just the converted amount in my message. And just to show you, this works in email too. In fact, I think this feature is baked into the text composition part of your phone. So theoretically, it should work anywhere that you need to input text. It might not sound like the most exciting feature, but if you frequently deal with currency conversions or calculations in your daily work, this could be a real game changer for you. Your iPhone's lock screen has a camera button that when pressed and held opens the camera. The problem is that this will either open the default camera mode or the last camera mode that you used. Let's say that you always want it to open in selfie mode. Up until iOS 18, there hasn't been a way to do this, but now you can set it up with a few simple steps. First, we need to create a shortcut that opens the camera in a specific mode. To do this, open the Shortcuts app on your iPhone. If you don't have the Shortcuts app installed, head to the App Store and download it. Next, tap the plus button in the top right corner to create a new shortcut. In the Search Actions field, type in Camera. You'll see an option called Open Camera that lets you choose which mode the camera will open in. For this example, we'll select Selfie, but you could also choose Video mode, Portrait mode, Cinematic mode, whatever you like really. Once you've selected the desired mode, tap the little downward arrow at the top of the screen and choose Rename. I'll name this shortcut Selfie and then tap Done to save it. Now if you tap on the shortcut, you'll see that it opens the camera in selfie mode just as we want. Next, to add this shortcut to the lock screen, lock your phone and tap once to wake it up. Then tap and hold until you see the Customize button. Tap on this, then choose Lock Screen. Currently, the camera button at the bottom right of my screen is set to the default option, so I'll tap the minus button to remove it. Now tap the plus button to add a new control. Scroll down until you see Shortcuts and select the Shortcut Control option. This will allow you to choose one of the shortcuts that you've already created. Tap on Choose, then select the Selfie shortcut from your list. Tap to exit that screen and then tap Done to save your changes. Now, every time that you tap and hold on the camera button from your lock screen, the camera will automatically open in selfie mode instead of the default mode. If you experience motion sickness when trying to use your iPhone as a passenger in a car, like my wife does, iOS 18 has a feature that could really help. Head to Settings, select Accessibility, tap Motion, and then choose Show Vehicle Motion Cues. By default, this is set to automatic, which means that your phone will try to intelligently detect if you're in a car based on its motion, but you can also choose to manually enable or disable this feature if you prefer. When enabled, you'll notice small dots appear around the edge of the screen, which move in relation to the motion of your phone. The idea is that these dots help reduce or even eliminate the motion sickness that you might feel while using your phone as a passenger without interrupting what you're doing. I'm lucky enough that I don't suffer from motion sickness myself, so I haven't been able to test this feature firsthand, although my wife does seem to think that it works for her. If you've tried this one out, let me know in the comments if it's been helpful for you. So your deal is almost closed and all that's left is the security review. But when it comes to those lengthy security questionnaires, the endless back and forth between you, your security team and the customer can often cause deals to stall out, leaving your deal at risk and dollars on the table. With Vanta questionnaire automation, go-to-market teams can complete security reviews up to 5 times faster, helping you close deals in less time than ever. Vanta's AI generates responses from your security knowledge base, so your team can review and submit in no time. Complete questionnaires in any format, from forms to portals. Over 8,000 global companies like ZoomInfo, Smart Recruiters, and Noibu use Vanta to streamline security questionnaires and close deals fast. Experience Vanta questionnaire automation for yourself with a self-guided product tour. Visit the link in the description of this video or scan my QR code to learn more. There's a really interesting new accessibility feature in iOS 18 called Vocal Shortcuts. To set it up, open Settings, then choose Accessibility and scroll down to the Speech section. Tap on Vocal Shortcuts. If you're doing this for the first time, you'll only see the option to set up a vocal shortcut, so tap on that. Your phone will provide a bit of information about what you're about to do. Just tap continue to proceed. The way that these shortcuts work is really easy. You choose a specific action for your phone to carry out whenever you say a particular phrase. You'll record yourself saying the phrase 3 times so that your phone knows to listen specifically for your voice. You can choose from a variety of actions, including system actions, accessibility actions, and at the top, you'll find shortcuts. While we won't go into detail about shortcuts in this video, if you're already familiar with them, you'll know that this makes the vocal shortcuts feature really powerful. You can create your own custom shortcuts to do pretty much anything on your phone and then trigger them with a voice command. For this example, I'll go to the system section and choose screenshot from the list. Next, I'll type in the phrase that I want to trigger the screenshot action. You can be as creative or as straightforward as you like here. I'm going to keep it simple and use the phrase take a screenshot. After pressing go in the bottom right, my phone will prompt me to say the phrase 3 times in a row. Each time that you say the phrase, wait for the green tick to confirm that your phone has recognized it before you repeat. You don't need to press anything while this is happening. Once your phone successfully captures the phrase, you can either add another shortcut or press continue. You'll notice that the vocal shortcuts menu page has now changed and your phone's microphone icon is on. This means that your phone is constantly listening for your specific phrase. If you want to disable this feature, you can do so by turning off vocal shortcuts, but do keep in mind that with this disabled, your phone won't be listening, and so your vocal shortcuts won't work. I'm going to switch mine back on and say take a screenshot. You'll see that my phone recognizes the phrase and performs the action.
Are you ready?
Okay, I think so.
Okay,
What
you're ready.
do I do?
Well, you need to work.
The essence of our purpose, you are able to connect the needs with the execution and the operation for future generations.
The impact that Spanish players have had on the game.
This is the beauty of football, that all of us have something special.
We have the responsibility to help people with disability.
That is our heritage, that is our legacy of Spain.
If you're someone who saves a lot of photos from the internet to your photo library, you probably experience the frustration of saving a photo with an old date in the metadata. You then go to find it in your library, only to realize it's nowhere to be found. Well, technically it is there. It's just probably right at the top of your library. This happens because the old date in the photo's metadata means it gets stored in your library based on when the image was originally captured rather than when you added it. In iOS 18, you can easily fix this. Tap the up-down arrow in the bottom left of the Photos app, and instead of choosing Sort by Date Captured, which is the default, select Sort by Recently Added. This way, your library will be much better organized. Photos that you capture will still appear in the correct chronological order, but any photos that you save from the web will show up based on the date that you saved